Hey everyone. After months of work, I am finally excited to reveal the biggest feature in the version 8.0 update for the Wentward Transmission Pack. Believe it or not, this is the first ever full transmission temperature simulation in the whole of BeamNG.drive. In the new version 8.0 update, I wanted more than new sounds. I wanted a whole new experience. I wanted a proper simulation that has a personality and also a breaking point. Every degree of heat you see on these new temperature gauges is being calculated in real time based on your load, your speed, and how your driving patterns are. Today, I'm going to show you the physics behind it, how each transmission has different heating amounts, why some gearboxes cook themselves, and what happens when the oil finally gives up. Before we drive, we need to understand where the heat actually comes from. It comes from the torque converter, which is basically two fans, or impellers, facing each other in a bath of oil. The engine spins the first impeller, and that oil has to physically push the second impeller, which is connected to the gearbox to move the wheels. The problem is that oil isn't a solid connection. It has slip, and in physics, slip equals friction. Every time your engine is revving higher than your wheels are turning, you are slipping that oil, which creates waste energy, which turns into raw heat. This is why stop-and-go traffic or heavy acceleration is the natural enemy of your transmission. Now, time for the main stuff, how the heat is simulated. Let's look at the ZF EcoMat 5 HP500. This is an older unit which follows the one C2C2L torque converter lockup, similar to an Allison. On the screen, you'll see it stays unlocked for a long time. It doesn't lock up until it's already moving pretty fast, which is really inefficient, as every time you pull away from a stop, you're dumping massive heat into the oil, as the speed difference creates lots of slip. You can also see how, when we are going up the hill, we are fast enough for second gear but too slow to lock. So we are dumping a lot of power as heat that could be used to get up the hill. Now look at the newer 4th Gen ZF EcoMat 6 HP604. This unit is built for efficiency. It locks up in first gear basically the moment you start moving. By using a mechanical plate to lock the two impellers together, it bypasses the oil entirely, which completely removes any slip. No slip means no heat. You can see here how the temperature only rose when accelerating unlocked, and once it locked, going up the hill was faster, but barely increased the temperature compared to the older ZF EcoMat, which remained unlocked for basically the whole climb. Then we have the Voith. These work differently compared to your conventional automatic. They use a differential Wandler system, where first gear is incredibly long and splits torque between a mechanical and a hydraulic path. This gives you that signature smooth acceleration, but it makes them heat factories under load. Because first gear is so long, you stay in the zone of maximum slip for much longer than a ZF. Watch the gauge. As we climb this grade, the slip is dumping raw energy into the oil. Even with the auxiliary cooling fans, which you can see active on the display, the temperature is surging. And here is where my simulation logic takes over. At 120 degrees Celsius, the bus triggers limp mode. I've coded the ECU to protect the hardware. Once we hit that threshold, the transmission forces lower shift points to reduce RPM and slip, trying to bring that temperature back down. It's the bus's way of begging the driver to stop, but as we'll see later, some drivers just don't listen. The Allison AT545 is a completely different beast. Unlike the Voith or the newer ZFs, it has no lockup clutch and no electronic brain to trigger a limp mode. It is always slipping 100% of the time. It relies entirely on airspeed. If you're at 60 kilometers per hour, you're safe. But the moment you lose that airflow on a hill while the converter is slipping, you're on your own. There is no ECU to save you here. You have to be a truly observant driver to keep the AT545 from melting. So we know how the heat works and we know how the ECU tries to stop it. But what happens if you ignore the warnings, force the bus out of limp mode, and keep pushing? Well, this driver found out the hard way.
It's 6:45 a.m., and the bus is on its way to Castelletto, a town at the top of the tallest mountain in Italy, to start their shift. The driver left the depot late, so they are in a rush to get to the top. To make up time, he's pushing the vehicle to its absolute limit. The road is one of the steepest and windiest in Italy, and today it would claim a victim: bus number 47. It was a Wentward DT40L, but a unique one. The only one in the country equipped with a Cummins engine and a Voith gearbox. Every corner puts the Voith into its first gear, and because it is so long, the torque converter is under constant stress. The bus is flying up the mountain, but inside the transmission, a disaster is brewing. The digital temperature monitor begins to flash hot. The driver sees it but doesn't change the way they are driving. Shortly after, the bus enters limp mode, a safety system designed to save the hardware. But the driver, focused only on the clock, overrides the safety. He forces the bus back into full power. Slowly, the temperature rose to 130 degrees. The driver didn't realize, but this was the tipping point of the whole trip. As the bus kept climbing higher, the mountains got steeper, and the engine worked harder. The harder the engine worked, the more heat was dumped into this already scorching hot oil. The bus began to slow down after corners, accelerating slower, but with higher engine RPM. As the engine was revving higher and the bus moving slower, the transmission temperature was in its danger zone, but the driver didn't care. 2 hairpins from the top of the mountain. Just before entering Castelletto, the driver slowed down to make the turn. The temperature was reading 160 degrees. They tried to accelerate out of the hairpin but couldn't move. Every time they let off the brake, they would roll back, and every time they would accelerate, they would roll back. With no way to move up, the bus was stranded on one of the busiest roads to get to Castelletto. All because the driver didn't pay attention to the warning signs, so they wouldn't end up a minute late, ended up causing a massive disruption. The road was blocked for half a day while they tried to tow the bus out, and bus 47, the one and only Cummins Voith DT40L in the whole of Italy, was withdrawn from service. Once it was towed back to the garage, the mechanics conducted an inspection to see if it could be repaired, but the transmission fluid there had carbonized into a black, gritty sludge that had destroyed the internal seals and warped the clutch plates. We spoke with a senior mechanic at FBX Car Service to get a professional post-mortem on the transmission and to understand exactly what caused such a catastrophic failure.
I've been working on Voith DWA boxes for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it. The oil, it wasn't even liquid anymore. It was like black sand. The heat, it literally cooked the internals into a solid block of metal. There was nothing left to save. It was a total write-off, and I don't even know how it could possibly happen.
The mechanics quoted $22,000 for a full transmission replacement and a month of labor to flush the contaminated cooling lines. For a bus of this age, the repair cost exceeded its market value. Rather than fixing it, the company made a strategic decision. They stripped the unique Cummins Voith drivetrain for parts and used the shell of bus number 47 to keep the rest of the fleet running. The incident effectively ended the era of high-torque Voith buses on the mountain, as they were replaced by more foolproof and newer ZF-equipped units. In the pursuit of saving 60 seconds, the driver didn't just lose a transmission, they lost the bus.
Version 8.0 of the Wentward Transmission Pack is all about giving the bus and each individual gearbox its own personality. It's about knowing your machine and respecting the limits of it and its oil. I hope this deep dive helps you appreciate the work that went into the first ever transmission temp simulation in BeamNG.drive. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the road.